Hey, you're listening to Births at Home, the podcast with me, Esmeralda, the home birth doula. Today, you are listening to episode 9, where we are going to hear from Krista share about her home birth as a first time mom. She goes into all of the little special details that made her labor and also shares about her postpartum experience as well. Let's go ahead and bring Krista on. Hey, Krista, if you just want to go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about you.
Awesome. Thanks, Esmeralda. Krista, I am a first-time mom to a nearly 7-month-old baby girl.
Mhm.
I live in the Chicago suburbs. Originally from West Central Minnesota, super small town in West Central Minnesota, and moved to the Chicago suburbs after my husband and I got married,
Mhm.
and then found out that we were pregnant. Shortly thereafter,
Mhm.
we got married, and welcomed our baby girl in July of 2023. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I work in recruiting, so I do interview for a living, actually. So you made that joke, and I was like, hey, there we go. That's my job. So
That's funny. Well, at least you have the experience, so this will be easy for you.
there we go.
And so, I love hearing that you are a first-time mom and you actually got into home birth with your first. So how did that happen?
Mhm. Yeah, great question. So that is actually something that I have for quite a while really been interested and wanted to intentionally pursue a home birth. And I know a lot of people are told or they hear things that, oh, for your first, maybe you should have a hospital birth. And
Mhm.
then, after that experience, depending on how that goes, then you can move into a home birth. And
Yeah.
every single time that I would hear that or read that, or somebody would tell me that point blank, I would just raise my eyebrows and be like, "Are you crazy? That's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard." Because from my perspective, it's like, well, if that's your ideal intention and goal is to have a home birth, why would you not just do that to start, right? Initially,
Mhm.
versus getting into the medical system and then having maybe a terrible outcome and then pursuing something different that was actually what you wanted to do initially. And so
Yeah.
for me, again, like I said, that was really something that I intentionally sought out and pursued when I found out that I was pregnant. And I, started contacting some local midwife practices and putting feelers out there and forming relationships and obviously finding out who was available for my projected due date too, which is always a joy. But
Mhm.
I think too, one of the things that helped propel me into pursuing home birth was actually seeing my sister
Okay.
go through a induction with her first baby, and she had high blood pressure, hypertension, and her midwife at the hospital there, again, this is in rural Minnesota, decided that they needed to induce for her,
Mhm.
and help get this baby out for some of those issues that she was having, and that was not her ideal dream birth. So again, me
Yeah.
seeing that and being part of that and experiencing that, I'm like, yeah, this is not something that I want for myself. So I just had the confidence knowing that this is absolutely not the path that I want to go down, and very,
Mhm.
very confident about home birth, and did a lot of research, a lot of reading stories and watching videos and reading books and
Mhm.
listening to podcasts, and again, a lot of just knowledge and education to prepare myself as much as I possibly could. And one of the things that I found kind of interesting and comical too is
Mhm.
that they recommend that you have a backup plan. That your
Yeah.
your first option obviously is to have a home birth, right? That's the ultimate goal. But in case anything were to happen, to have that backup plan.
Mhm.
And when I was pregnant, there was a part of me that I was like, that's really something that I should do, right? But
Mhm.
I ultimately decided that, hey, you know what? This is in God's hands. I am super confident, feel incredibly prepared and equipped to
Yeah.
have a home birth, and that's what I am going to do. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And so for me, I never actually prepared a backup plan of,
Mhm.
hey, here's the hospital that I would go to. Here's, that OB that I would be working with at that location, all of those different pieces. So I never
Yeah.
did any of that, which again, a lot of midwives do not necessarily recommend, but again, for me, that was something that I was like, no, I'm not even going to let my brain go there,
Mhm.
because I am 100% committed and ready for this home birth. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
good.
great. I love that you touched on that. Because yeah, a lot of people, including me, I do say like to do a backup plan and make sure you know, like, if this scenario happened, what do you
Mhm.
want to happen from there? But for some people, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for
Exactly.
everybody to just know like a full on plan. And
Yeah.
sometimes if it's best for your mindset to not go to that place, you need to protect your mindset for
Exactly.
the birth. So, it's great that you knew that for you, it was not the best choice to do that and
Mhm.
just to leave that alone and focus on, like, home birth only and
Yeah.
having a positive mindset around all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I would say too, again, that's something that I would recommend. Like looking back, I'm
Mhm,
like, oh man, there could have been a point where it was like, okay, we need to go to plan B. But again, I
mhm,
just all throughout my pregnancy, I was like, yep, not gonna let my brain go there. So
mhm. And it could
um
have been even, like, you listening to your intuition that maybe was telling you, like, "I don't need to do that."
mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
good to follow those intuitions that you feel too. So, yeah, that's really
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
and so if you wanna go ahead and just tell us a little bit about if you wanna touch on pregnancy, that's fine, or if you just wanna go straight on to when labor started.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of an interesting story. Like I said, my husband and I had just gotten married, and our plan was that we were going to wait for a couple of years, have that time together.
Yeah.
But God had other plans, and I mean, it has been like the most amazing, miraculous blessing ever.
Mhm.
Um, but we also both, I think, were in the headspace that we were going to struggle with fertility.
Okay.
I have quite a few infertility issues in my family, and he has a few on his side as well. And so that was something that we were fully prepared and expecting for. So we were not trying, but again, God had other plans for us,
Yeah.
in that to have this amazing miracle baby. So it was, I mean, my pregnancy was awesome. I mean, first trimester was, typical first trimester. A lot of morning sickness, all day sickness, exhaustion. I mean, the amount of naps that I took was insane. But then we also, when I got into the second trimester, I had all my energy back, which was awesome. We love to go hiking and camping and travel and explore, and we're super adventure focused. And so we did a lot of that in the second and even into the third trimester, to the point that in the third trimester, I think I was like 32 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
Right on the cusp of like, probably shouldn't be doing this, but I think I was like 32 weeks, and we went to Utah and actually camped and hiked. And I had one gal who, when we were hiking in Arches National Park, she approached me and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Good for you for doing this." And I was like, "Thanks." I mean, for me, in my perspective, I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I've been doing, my whole pregnancy. So no big deal." But she's like, "Good for you." So
Mhm.
that was a fun conversation that we had. But again, it's really awesome to like continue throughout pregnancy doing the things
Mhm.
that you love to do. And so, like I said, a lot of education for my kind of like preparation of labor.
Yeah.
And again, good meetings with my midwife team and my doula in preparation for the home birth as well. And then I think when I was like, oh gosh, it was like 36 weeks, again, right on the cusp, I actually drove up to one of my cousin's graduation parties and visited family. And I was like, all right, this is the last time before I have this baby that I'll be able to see all of my family. So
Yeah.
that was really fun to be able to do that. And again, just
Mhm.
have people kind of step into my pregnancy and then talk about home birth as well. And one of the things too, Esmeralda, that I want to just mention is that
Mhm.
I was a little bit apprehensive around talking about having a home birth with people, to the point where, people would ask, "Oh, what are your birth plans?" And it's like, well, how do I how do I explain, that I'm
Yeah.
planning on having a home birth and not have that judgment and, again, those kind of emotions and people's connotations thrown
Mhm.
onto me, and again, that kind of projection from their own personal experiences as well. And so that
Yeah.
was something that I actually got to a point and had a conversation with my husband about, and he was extremely confident, like to the point where he was talking to everybody, like anybody and everybody, about us having a home birth. And I was just like, okay, you need to stop telling people that we're planning a home birth,
Mhm.
because it's making me a little bit uncomfortable. And so, I mean, again, I got to a point where I was like, okay, yeah, now I'm feeling more confident, more excited about this. Like, not that I
Mhm.
wasn't the whole entire pregnancy, but again, I just didn't want people's, kind of connotations and experiences projected to then
Yeah.
negate, again, like we're talking about that mental side of things. So,
Mhm.
and then throughout our whole entire, or my whole entire pregnancy as well, we were remodeling our house. And so this is kind of, again, something that we were like, oh man, we're having this baby again. We were not planning, not trying.
Mhm.
And then it's like, okay, pregnant. Now we need to finish remodeling our house so that we actually have a
Yeah.
home to one, have this baby in, and then, be able to raise this child and everything. So,
Yeah.
um, I think it was the Friday before. So my daughter was born on Wednesday. The Friday before, we had our carpet installed in our master bedroom, and had, of course, finished like retiling and remodeling the whole entire bathroom. So we had the water in the bathtub and the shower hooked up again.
Mhm.
The vanity, like new vanity installed, and all of that. So got our carpet installed on that. I think it was Sunday night, or maybe no, it was Monday night. We moved our bed into our master. So we had only slept in our master bedroom for 2 nights before she was born. So, I mean, nothing like cutting it close before,
Yeah.
again, this whole entire, like, labor and birth happens.
Mhm.
And the whole entire pregnancy too, my husband had a work conference, in St. Louis, Missouri, and so, that's a 4.5-hour drive from our house. He was planning on going, and I was encouraging him to go because the whole, like, mindset of my pregnancy too was that I was going to go to 42 weeks. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, I was prepared mentally, physically, emotionally to go to 42 weeks. And
Yeah.
so I was encouraging him, "Hey, go, no worries, like, I won't even be at 40 by then, so you just go, do your thing, whatever, I'll be here hanging out,
Mhm.
working myself, and see you when you get back, and then maybe we'll have this baby," right?
Yeah.
So I had actually invited my parents, they live again in West Central Minnesota, so it's an
Mhm.
8-hour drive, for them to come stay, with me while my husband was at this conference. So they got down on Tuesday evening, and we had a really nice dinner and went for a walk that night and just had some good time chatting and enjoying each other's time, and helped my husband get packed up to leave
Yeah.
the next morning to go to St. Louis.
Mhm.
And that night we stayed up kind of chatting just a little bit later, and it was probably about 11:30, something like that. And, got up off the couch. And as soon as I stood up, I was just like, oh, all right, that was an interesting feeling.
Yeah.
And it was just kinda like my pelvis, kinda like
Mhm.
shifting, and I don't know, it was kind of like almost like a grinding, feeling and sensation. I was like, "Okay," didn't really think anything of it. I had been having Braxton Hicks or prodromal labor for, probably like 4 or 5 weeks at that point, so
Mhm.
didn't really think anything of it at all. Went to
Yeah.
bed that night, and we had a gigantic thunderstorm that evening, and that night, and at about 3 o'clock, I woke up, and it was, just crazy, crazy thunderstorms. So I
Yeah.
got into the bathroom, and I was like, "Okay, like, I'm having some Braxton Hicks, like, it's fine, whatever." Again, didn't really think anything of it.
Mhm.
Get back to bed, and then my husband gets up at 5 and goes and works out, and then, comes back, grabs his stuff, and, gets ready to go. But before he heads out the door to get on the road for this trip, he decided to, crawl into bed, and he's like, "All right, I love you. Have a good couple days. We'll see you on Friday.
Mhm.
Call me if you need anything, whatever." Well, I didn't, again, think that anything was happening. I thought it was totally Braxton Hicks.
Yeah.
So I tell him like, "Hey, I'm having contractions," or, labor, any of that. I didn't say any of that. I was like, "Yep, sounds good, have a great trip." And he went out the door, and, so it's probably about, I don't know, like 8:30, 9 o'clock when, I was like, "Okay, yeah, like, these are kind of interesting." Well, the morning before, that Tuesday morning, I had the same thing that morning when I woke up, and, some Braxton Hicks, and when I got up, they went away like nothing.
Yeah.
Wednesday morning, I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be the same thing," which is
Mhm.
also why I didn't mention anything to my husband, because I totally thought that it was going to be the exact same situation, and maybe,
Yeah.
like, again, in my head, I'm still just like 42 weeks, right?
Mhm.
And so I was, at that point, 39 plus 6 was that win. And so I, get up, and again, my contractions are kinda still happening, and I mentioned it to
Mhm.
my mom, and I'm like, "Yeah, like, I'm having some Braxton Hicks, and she's like, "Oh, okay," and, she's, like, watching and paying attention to me, and she's like, "Are you sure they're Braxton Hicks?" And they feel exactly like what I've been experiencing the last 4 or 5 weeks, like, nothing
Yeah.
different, whatever. Well, at one point, I went to the bathroom and started to, have my bloody show and,
Oh.
lose my mucus plug, and I was like, "Alright, maybe things are happening." So I text my husband and I'm like, "Hey, just so you're aware, things are starting to happen." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm like an hour from St. Louis at this point. Do I keep going? Like, you think that you're going
Mhm.
to be in labor for a long time, so should I still go? Like, I'm literally almost
Yeah.
there." And I was like, "It's fine, like whatever." And I would just say that, like, the word that kind of, like, sums up the whole entire, like, birth story and labor of mine is denial.
Mhm.
And my mom would definitely agree, like, she was asking me questions, and I'm like, "No, it's fine, whatever." And I even at one point told her, like, "Oh, yeah, the mucus plug regenerates." Like, this isn't labor." It's like, "Okay." So she thought that I was, like, full of it, which
Mhm.
obviously was, but, I just again, I was in this headspace where
Yeah.
I was not in labor. Like, again, this was really, like, not really any different than anything that I had experienced previously, which was kind of enjoyable, but,
Mhm.
just because it made for, like, a really easy labor, I would say, is because, again,
Yeah.
I didn't think that it was anything different, anything that was actually active labor too,
Mhm.
which, you know, is not necessarily good or bad, but from like a, kind of overall standpoint. But
Mhm.
um, so I texted my midwife and doula as well and saying like, hey, just so you're aware, losing my mucus plug and having a little bit of bloody show. And they're like, okay, cool, get in the bath or take a shower and see if your contractions will slow down. And at that point, I was probably having contractions like 15 to 17 minutes apart. Not worth timing or anything like that at that point.
Yeah.
So I jump in the bath and then I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna take a bath." That really didn't do anything. I'm like, "Okay, just turn the shower on, whatever."
Mhm.
Like wash my hair, who knows, like if this is actually labor, like when am I going to be able to wash my hair next, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, "All right, might as well just, do that and just take my time and enjoy my day and whatever."
Mhm.
So it was kind of fun too, just to, be in that headspace. Get out of the shower, my contractions, they did slow down just a little bit. And then I
Okay.
had like, I don't know, something just like clicked where I started to have them a little bit closer together.
Mhm.
So my mom and we went and made up the bed and, got everything prepared in the bedroom. And then, um, at this point too, we're still texting my husband and he's like, okay, I'm on the road, turning around, whatever. So he literally, we joked that he went to St. Louis to have lunch with his team. And he sat through one session and everybody's like, you're crazy. She's in labor. Get out of here. And he's like, yeah, but like she's fine. She's telling me to be here, which I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, still in that headspace of 42 weeks, right? And that I
Mhm.
wasn't in actual labor. So anyway, he got on the road, started to come home, and in that meantime, too, my doula was like, "Okay, you need to start doing some mile circuit." And so I was trying to, got a little bit interrupted because there were actually tornadoes happening.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so like the sirens were going off, and we're like, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" Like we don't have a basement at our house. We have a
Mm.
crawl space, so we're like, "Okay, go to like the bathroom is like the most interior structurally sound room."
Yeah.
And so anyway, just kinda, like, playing that by ear. My dad was on weather watch, um, the whole entire time, like, watching the storms, and as my husband was driving back, he actually saw a funnel cloud, um, which was kind of just crazy part of the story too, that it's just like, okay, he's trying to get back, for, like, this storm of events of labor and,
Yeah.
our daughter, and, so it was just kind of amazing, like, in general, like, all
Mhm.
the God moments throughout the day.
Mhm.
Um and so anyway, he gets back at like 6:47 PM. He gets back and it was pouring rain at this point. He leaves all of his stuff in the car, runs in the house and, comes and checks on me. And at that point I was back in the bathtub. I actually did
Mhm.
a lot of my laboring in our deep soaker tub. and which
Okay.
was a lifesaver. And my mom was amazing, just like seriously, she was the best support ever.
Mhm.
She goes, "Yeah, if your birth is going to follow like how my first went," she's like, "You're gonna be having this baby tonight." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Oh yeah, for sure." I was like, "Okay, sounds good." So that was kind of fun too, but she was really helping me, like, in terms of like, okay, breathe through the contraction. And, she's like, all right, I can see, like, physically see that, like, you're over the halfway point. And, it was just awesome how she was,
Mhm.
coaching me and walking through
Yeah.
that and again, being an amazing support. So that was a really, really special experience that her and I got to share together,
Mhm.
throughout the whole labor and birth. Um, and then so my husband gets back and he starts to fill up, or like get the birth tub set up with my dad. And at that point, my midwife and doula had both been on the same birth, the like day before. So they were coming off of a 30-hour birth. So they were like,
Oh,
"Oh
wow.
yeah, like you have time, we have time. We're gonna like go home, shower, take a nap, eat some food, whatever." And so I
Mhm.
had been giving them, kind of a play by play the whole entire day. And they were like, "Oh yeah, you're fine. Like, your contractions aren't close enough together, whatever." Well, at one point, my mom actually grabbed my phone and shot a text message off to my midwife. And she's like, essentially saying, "Hey, I know that you know your stuff, but also, genetically, this is looking a lot like my first labor. And
Mm.
so if you want my 2 cents as a mom who's watching my daughter in labor right now, you might want to get over here." So,
Her
which was kind
mommy
of funny,
bear came
right?
out at that
Exactly.
moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. She was very, very protective where she's like,
Mhm.
like, "This is actually happening," like, so,
Yeah.
and she wanted to just make sure that, they were aware because I was kind of, again, denial, playing it off, like,
Mhm.
this baby won't be coming today, like, this baby will come tomorrow sometime, like,
Yeah.
whatever. So so anyway, my husband gets home at like 6:47 p.m. And then at 8:29, our doula arrived, and then the midwife and the assistant arrived at 8:38, and then by 9:57, our daughter was born.
Oh, wow.
So everything happened super, super fast. Like
Yeah.
when my husband got home, I was, like I said, still in the bathtub,
Mhm.
laboring at that point. And, we had been texting her back and forth. And then at one point, she called and was just checking in. And, she was just wanting to listen to
Mhm.
me in labor. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yep, for sure this is happening." So she's like, "Okay, let me call the team. I'll call you right back." And then at one point, my mom was like, "Oh, there's a little bit of blood in the bathtub." And my midwife was like, "Okay, I'm hanging up. I'm going to FaceTime you back." She's
Yeah.
like, "I need to see what's going on." So she actually was like, "Oh yeah, you're for sure having this baby." Like, and she's like, "Krista, you're gonna have this baby in the bathtub if you don't get out right now." And I was like, "Well, I'm not mad about that. Like, I'm fine with that." And she's like, "No, you need to get out." So she was like, "Okay, you guys need to get a bunch of towels and have the bulb syringe ready to go." And she's like, "I'll walk you through it all. I'm on the road. I'm coming your way." But she's like, "If anything were to happen, like, I'll walk you through it all," which was
Yeah.
great. And my mom was in the other room at that point, but my mom was freaking out because she's like, "Oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. Like, we were just going to hang out for a couple days. Like, maybe this baby
Yeah.
will this coming weekend, like whatever."
Mhm.
And so she was just kind of freaking out, even though my mom has given birth to 3 babies. She's like,
Mhm.
"All right, this is a little bit different when it's your daughter that you're watching and
Yeah.
experiencing that with." And then again, she just was a little bit concerned too about how fast things were progressing. So she's like,
Yeah.
"I'm not ready to catch this baby." So, and again, I was very, very calm where I'm just like, I'm just kind of chilling, relaxing, like in the
Mhm.
tub and, having conversation. And I mean, it was totally fine. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned or anything. I was just like excited. And so anyway, my mom and husband get me out of the tub, um, and they bring me over to our bed. And, um, I'm like on hands and knees and, not pushing or anything like that. But my midwife was like, "Hey, do you feel like you could push?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I have like the poop sensation, right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
desperate need to poop." And she's like, "Oh, good." And I was like, "Okay, awesome. Do you want me to labor on the toilet? Like, do you want me to labor on the bed? What do you want?" And she's like, "Wherever you're comfortable, do whatever you want," which is one of the reasons, of course, too, why I had chosen home birth is because I wanted that freedom to move
Yeah.
around as needed and, with different positions and just be in the comfort of my own home as well.
Mhm.
And so, that was kind of funny that she's like, "Do whatever you want, we don't care." So when the doula and the midwife team, arrived, I was on the bed at that point, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you're doing great, whatever." And, my mom thought that I had started to lose some steam. I hadn't really eaten anything all day. I didn't really have an appetite at all. I had tried to force myself to eat some things, in early labor just because I knew that I needed that energy,
Yeah.
and that, sustenance, but I was not able to eat anything. Um, so at that point, I probably was losing a little bit of, energy and stuff. And so, I had done a bunch of honey sticks, which was super, super helpful. And then drank a bunch of juice as well. Like, seriously, those two things were like lifesavers in my labor.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I'm just like hands down, like honey sticks and juice all the way. Um, but, yeah, it's interesting because right when the midwife arrived, she came over to my head, and she was like, "Hey, I'm here, you're safe, everything is okay." Which I really appreciated that, and apparently I needed to hear that, like,
Mhm.
those words to just let my body relax and, like, my brain relax as well and kinda
Yeah.
just, give way to, like, any of those fears. And I would say too that one of the things that was kind of interesting is that until my husband had gotten back home, the position of the baby and again, like, the contractions were kind of a little bit all over the place. As
Mhm.
soon as Andrew walked in the door and came over and said hi to me when I was laboring in the tub, um, everything, like, started to fall into place. So again,
Mm.
like, that psychological barrier was really interesting for me, but also
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, where I kinda just again, my guard was let down,
Mhm.
with him being here, and then again, that kind of happened with the midwife when she arrived as well.
Yeah.
And literally she went, so she said hi up by my face and then walked around, and I think I remember yelling out, like, "I need to push." And she's like, "Okay, do whatever you need to do, like, just trust your body at this point." And I'm like, "Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good." I'm like, "I need to push." And literally I pushed, and my 4 Vega waters broke all over her, all over my doula. Um, and then I had said that we had just gotten our carpet installed that Friday before, and
Mhm.
so I immediately look at my husband and I'm like, "Is the carpet okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, but why are you worrying about that right now?" And I'm like, "No, seriously, this is brand new carpet in our house, like,
Yeah.
is it okay? Is it clean?" And the midwife was like, "Yep, everything is fine, don't worry, we caught it." Awesome, glad to hear it. So, anyway, in the meantime, the midwife assistant, and my dad were frantically trying to get water into our birth tub.
Mm.
And so my dad was in the kitchen boiling every single pot and pan and had our electric tea kettle and the microwave and crock pot and everything. Oh my gosh, trying to get, water because of course we had emptied our hot water heater. I had had 2 baths that day and a shower already. So, so we had like hardly any hot water anyway
Yeah.
coming out of the shower. And so, again, they're frantically doing that back and forth, and occasionally I, like, would kind of come to, the present moment and see, her going back and forth with, full and empty pots, in her hands, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, "This is happening." So they just kept telling me, "Hey, we're going to do our best to try to fill the birth tub. We know that you want to have a water birth." And I said, "Yes, absolutely, if possible, like, that's my desire,
Mhm.
to have that, so let's do it." And literally, the birth tub was filled, and I was able to get in, and I would say within, like, probably 5 minutes of getting in the birth tub, um, again, I was pushing, on the bed
Mhm.
the whole time, like, through contractions and stuff like that, and at one point too, I remember, my midwife saying, "Krista, I don't think I need to tell you how and where to push." And I, like, reflect back on that, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that is the most interesting statement." And I don't know what kind of, like, propelled her to make that statement and phrase it the way that she did, if it was
Mhm.
all of the conversations that we had leading up to it in which she was like, "Oh, yeah, I know you've done your research and you know your stuff, and yes,
Mhm.
this is your first time, you know, birthing, but also, you're probably pretty knowledgeable." And that's,
Yeah.
again, why she phrased it that way, but that really actually gave me a lot of, like, power,
Yeah.
and confidence to just be like, "Boom, let's go."
Mhm.
Um and so, like, that was really, really awesome, and I remember her saying that and me looking, and I have this feeling of, like, fear, come through me where
Mhm.
it's like, this is actually happening. And my
Mhm.
mom, her and I have debriefed, of course, a lot. And she was by my side the whole entire labor. And then, of course, my husband when he had gotten there as well. But my mom made a comment about that. And she said, no, your face looked like super peaceful and super like
Mhm.
just excited and confident at that point. And I was like, really? Because I felt super terrified at that point where it's like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Um, which was interesting again when I had kind of again been in denial and like super peaceful and just like kind of going with the flow all day,
Mhm.
to where it's like at that point I was getting in my head,
Yeah.
and not trusting in my body to do what it
Mhm.
needed to do, of course. Because again, I think it was like that tie between the whole like, hey, I don't need to tell you how and where to push. And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, cool, this is happening. Like, here we
Mhm.
go. So anyway, I get in the birth tub once that's finally filled, literally in the tub for 5 minutes, and I mean, her head is like right there, um, and yeah, I felt the ring of fire, which was intense, but also like, yeah, this is happening,
Mhm.
and I mean, I again from when the team was there, it was like an hour and 15 minutes from when they arrived to when she was born,
Mhm.
and I would say, I mean, I pushed for maybe like maybe 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, where again, it's like all the different pieces falling into place, which was awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, and she was born in the tub, and my midwife said, Krista, she's right there. Reach down and feel her. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, cool. I did that. And then she's like, she's right there. Grab your baby. And I was just kind of
Yeah.
like in this space of, again, I was still like in the moment, super, super focused. And like the whole entire time that I was in labor, I was just insanely focused where like, conversations were happening around me, but like I wasn't really aware of what was being said and who was saying it and all of those different things.
Yeah.
So when she said that, again, I was still super, super focused, like in my space,
Mhm.
where it's like, nope, this is what I'm doing. Like I'm just again hyper, hyper focused. She's
Mhm.
like, your baby, grab your baby. Your baby is right there. And so I do, I reach down and grab our baby and pull her up, and it was a surprise gender. And
Okay.
so we had no idea, no inclinations. Like I had had dreams and ideas throughout pregnancy, and kind of had based my like how I was carrying her compared to my sister, who also had had a daughter. And so I was like, maybe it's a girl, but I had
Mhm.
feelings where it was a boy. So pick her up and pull her out of the water, and I had to give her a little bit of a breath, just to help clear things and, suck out some of that mucus as well. But
Yeah.
I'm immediately just like, I say hi, and then I say hi
Mhm.
again, and my mom is in the corner in the side just bawling her eyes out,
Mhm.
and she recounts that memory, and she's like, yeah, all I remember is you just like crying, saying hi to your baby.
Mhm.
Um, and my husband was in the tub with me as well, the whole entire time that I was in that tub before she
Yeah.
was born. Not long, but and so he comes over and wraps his arms around us as well, and
Mhm.
we're both just in awe of this amazing little baby. And everybody's like, okay, are you going to check and see? And I was just like, no, I'm just, enjoying my baby. And so finally I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a girl, which was an incredible moment as well.
Mhm.
Just to, again, not know and then have that realization that, hey, it is a girl,
Mhm.
was just so special. So, and in that moment too, my mom had asked, and I, was kind of like aware more now, of course, of what was happening. My mom had asked, "Hey, is it okay if Dad comes in and, sees the baby?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't care. Like at this point, whatever, right?" So he comes in quick and, sees us holding our daughter, and was just absolutely in awe as well. And, it was a really special moment to share both
Yeah.
obviously with my husband, but also to have my parents there and that support. And I'm really close to my parents. So for me, that was incredible.
Mhm.
But anyway, he stepped in real quick, saw her, and then stepped back out. And at this point, they were like, okay, we need to move you. They had just seen the color of the water,
Yeah.
and how it was slightly redder, and a little bit concerning compared to normal. And
Yeah.
so my team was like, okay, we need to get you out of the water. I know that you want to stay in the water to birth your placenta, but we need to get you out.
Mhm.
So, so they helped me get out of the tub, which was, again, awesome as I'm holding our baby, and I'm like, okay, don't fall, don't go anywhere, right? And then they get me on the bed, and they're like, yeah, this is actually pretty concerning in terms of potential hemorrhage here. So
Yeah.
they're like, we're just going to give you a little bit of time, but we're also going to get this placenta out because, we don't know if something tore or what happened.
Mhm.
And actually, one thing too, I do want to back up that I remember as our baby was being born too. So my midwife had said, okay, Krista, get in the runner's lunge, right? Where you have
Mhm.
one leg in front of the other. And she's like, I want you in that position. That's how I want you to give birth. I was like, okay, sounds good. So I immediately jump into that. And I asked her afterwards if there was, an indication that this baby, had shoulder dystocia.
Yeah.
And she said, nope, not at all. There's nothing in our notes. We didn't see that at all. We just, seeing you in labor, wanted to give you a better position from where
Mhm.
you had been. Because I was, and I was, I think, just like on my hands and knees at that point. And so she's like,
Mhm.
nope, we want you to switch to runner's lunge and be in that position. And then, our baby also had one nuchal cord, which was not concerning at all. She just grabbed that cord and unwrapped it.
Mhm.
No problem at all. But yeah, so I remember asking her that as well. Like, hey, was that a concern? And she's like, nope, not at all. Not a problem that we had. Just wanted you to be in a more optimal position for delivering this baby. So anyway, back to the placenta delivery. So I'm on the bed, and they're massaging my uterus actually to help get that going. And I would say probably within like 15 minutes after she was born, my placenta was out. And
Okay.
again, they were pretty concerned just because of how quickly things had happened. But again, just seeing everything, they were like, yeah, potential risk of hemorrhaging here. And so they gave me, I think, I don't know exactly what homeopathic they gave me, but they gave me a few different homeopathics just to help, with that kind of transition and with that
Mhm.
blood, loss at that point. And then also one thing that was amazing is that my dad, like I said, had been boiling water and, doing everything kind of behind the scenes, manning the weather watch, all of those different pieces.
Yeah.
But he also had put a bunch of towels in our dryer. And so
Okay.
and blankets in the dryer. So I had like a pile of blankets and towels, when I had gotten out of the tub that were wrapped around me and just cycled through, which was absolutely incredible. And he, I had asked him, I think my midwife also asked him, like, well, how did you think of that? And he's like, well, I remember that with, my mom when she was giving birth to all three of us. And he's like, I remember that being an incredible thing for her to
Mhm.
have that warmth around her after giving birth. And so, he just took it upon himself and threw them all in the dryer and
Aw.
bringing me warm blankets and towels, which was incredible. So again, just that, like, it's the small things too that like make up
Yeah.
the entire story,
Mhm.
which was really nice. So anyway, and then I actually had a second degree tear, which was a quite substantial second degree tear, in which I was at a point where I'm like, I don't want to be stitched. I just want to let this heal naturally. And my midwife was like, no, I think we need to stitch you. so
Mm.
so that process took quite a while as well. Um, and from again that first like look at our baby, and then putting her on my chest, and she actually did the baby crawl and
Wow.
latched instantly. It was incredible.
Mhm.
And while I was pregnant, I was a little bit concerned about that just because I didn't know exactly how that would play out.
Yeah.
But I mean, she latched instantly and ate super well. And I mean, just let her kind of be the skin to skin. And then, like I said, when I was getting stitched up, then I had to pass her off to my husband. But she also was born with meconium. And
Okay.
so that was another concern that the team had as well, is, with that meconium in the water, what issues for both me and for her, it wasn't like a super big deal, but they also were just watching and kind of looking at what that was. And then as I was holding her and as she was nursing, she continued to just poop meconium all over the place. So that was also hilarious where it's like, they're changing the towels and blankets and stuff, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're covered in meconium. I'm like, yep, sure am. So, um, But, yeah, I mean, incredible, like, the team, just the
Mhm,
support and everything, um, and just the outcome too, like, again, like I said, it was just very much so, like, things happened super slow, but then also super
mhm,
fast, and again, I was just in denial for a lot of the day, so absolutely incredible to have, um, her be born that day and have everybody there, have my husband be there. And again, like I said, the support from my parents as well was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, it was definitely an incredible experience.
mhm.
What I had envisioned and thought, to an extent, like there were of course things that I'm like, oh, I had a playlist ready and I had essential oils ready and some of those things, and I had some affirmations and whatever.
Mhm.
None of that happened, none of that mattered in the
Yeah.
moment, where it's really like kind of that back to like your primal, and God-given instincts of this is how birth is supposed to be.
Mhm.
And if you just trust yourself in your body and trust in him, then everything will be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I shared just a lot there, but
No,
um,
I love it. It was great. You shared like every little detail. And like you said, those little details do matter because that's
mhm,
like what makes your birth experience.
yeah,
And then you'll always remember like those little sweet moments during
mhm,
the whole labor and birth. So
yeah,
yeah, I really loved that you shared like all those little sweet intimate moments with us as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your story. Is there anything else postpartum that you wanted to touch on, or do you think you got everything?
Yeah, good question. I would say from like a postpartum experience, I mean, there were a couple things that like really helped me. I did a ton of like herbal sitz baths, um, which was definitely needed. Again, like I said, I tore, and
Hmm.
was stitched. So that was, something that just from that kind of like pain, and soreness to help heal everything was awesome to have. And then, Perry bottles and all of that too, the Earth Mama. Perry spray is clutch, seriously.
Yes.
Like the best thing ever. I went through so much of that. I'm just like, okay, this is seriously the best thing ever.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, I mean, the other thing that I had done in preparation, is probably about 5 weeks, before she was born. My mom and sister had come and spent a long weekend with me, and they helped prepare a bunch of postpartum meals, and of course, get
Hmm.
like the nursery ready and some of those different things as well. And so, that was a huge thing, was to have all of those postpartum meals prepped, and, having that support from family. And then my mom also stayed with us for 2 weeks,
Okay.
after, well, actually, I think it was a week and a half after our daughter was born. So, which was great to have, that support as well, where it's like, okay, none of us are sleeping. Here you go. Here's the baby. You can go ahead and take her and we'll go get like an hour nap real quick.
Yeah.
But then also again, kind of like an extra set of hands as well from like a nourishment standpoint,
Hmm.
was like a huge thing that I was very passionate about as well, in terms of like making sure that I was like, you know, getting my stores back up and the right nutrients, both from like, again, that recovery for myself, but also from the breastfeeding for her.
Yeah.
And so, just being able to get proper nutrients and enough. And having, I mean, my mom was awesome about like, okay, you're hungry, here you go, or
Hmm.
filling my water bottle or things like that. So yeah, there were a lot of, again, support components, that I didn't realize that I needed or wanted until, after the fact, which
Hmm.
was super helpful. So, yeah, I mean, like looking back, that's one of the things where I'm like, yeah, I, wasn't planning on having my parents be there, for the birth, wasn't
Yeah.
planning on having, my mom stay for a week and a half after she was born. But again, those different pieces of support, were very, very critical, I would say, in
Hmm.
terms of like my recovery. So, and I actually was weirdly enough, like super lucky that I didn't have a ton of bleeding postpartum. I had, I mean, I would say 3 weeks where it was not super heavy,
Hmm.
pretty light bleeding, but by week 4, I was pretty much done,
Yeah.
which was really weird and not what I had expected or anticipated going
Okay.
into, again, my postpartum journey. So I
Hmm.
expected to, have super, super heavy bleeding. a lot of pain and tenderness for like 6 to 8 weeks.
Mhm.
And again, by week 4, I was pretty good. So
Yeah.
that was one thing that I'm like, hey, it's a nice positive,
Mhm.
but also again an unexpected kind of blessing in that. So yeah, and then there were some other things too, of course. I mean, in terms of like, supplements and nutrition, like I'd already mentioned, but some of those different things too that I did both during pregnancy, continued to do throughout postpartum as well,
Yeah.
to continue to, maintain some of those different pieces. And then the other thing too that I would say is, from like a nursing standpoint as well, that I had taken a class on, specifically nursing.
Mhm.
And that was super helpful in terms of, again, my mom had been there, done that with 3 babies, my sister with hers, but having kind of just that like unbiased third party knowledge and experience as well in this
Yeah.
class was really helpful to just kind of think about, hey, here's how, if your baby is doing this, then do this, or,
Mhm.
here's kind of, I don't know, like tried and true ways to help you have a successful breastfeeding journey. So
Yeah.
for me, that was really helpful as well to, go through and then have that experience prepare me a little bit, as much as you can be prepared. That
Mhm.
is one of the things I guess that did surprise me in terms of postpartum is that it's like, yeah, this is, incredible, but
Mhm.
also, lots of soreness. My baby had a couple ties. So that was,
Mm.
a little bit of a challenge. And then I also had a really, really, really heavy letdown and super strong flow.
Mm.
So to the point where I was like essentially drowning her because there was so much milk. She didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting, something that we had to navigate together as well. And I would say that, because of some of those things, our bond now at her being almost 7 months old, is just super, super strong because of all those
Mhm.
different things. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Does that
That's
answer that
great.
question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. I felt like you did everything you needed to prepare, and even the things that you didn't have prepared, they just kind of fell into place, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really awesome. Because yeah, that support system, like, during the birth, yes, but also postpartum is
Yeah.
very, very critical. So, the way that that just kind of fell into place for you and you had that there, that's amazing.
Yeah.
'Cause I really do think people who don't have that support system, that's like a big trigger for postpartum
Yes.
depression and like all of that happening because they just don't have any help in that system there to
Mm-hmm.
kind of not get them out of that. So,
Yep.
yeah, I'm glad that you had all of that prepared and even if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't, it fell into place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that again, that is one thing that I know some people have different, different life stories and different family kind of structures and support, or
Mhm,
lack thereof. And I would say as much as possible, like having that is super, super impactful.
mhm,
Especially, I would say again, back to being a first time mom, and if you've kind of been there as a mom before and have given birth before, that support probably looks different and will need to be different,
yeah,
with probably helping with other kids, but,
mhm,
and obviously with you as well. But having that support as first time mom is, yeah, definitely huge. So,
mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of women don't think about it because they don't have that aspect of like, "Oh, there's nobody else to take care of besides my baby. I can do it all myself. It's fine."
yeah,
And that shouldn't be the mentality that we should have. We need that help. We need that
yeah.
support system. You should only be focusing on your baby and nothing
hmm
else. It doesn't mean
Well,
that you could do everything.
yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably like, I don't know, 2 weeks postpartum when I was talking to my mom and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy being, like this as a first time mom, recovering from birth, all of that." I said, "It's literally a full-time job just caring for
Mhm.
myself right now. Not even our
Mhm.
dog, but literally just caring for myself."
Yeah.
And that just struck me again in terms of like the support that's needed
Mhm.
for moms, right? Like postpartum, it's just like that is absolutely necessary to have whatever that support looks like. That looks different for everybody in terms of what they need and want.
Yeah.
But having some sort of support, whether it's, people bringing you a meal that you don't need to cook or prepare, or,
Mhm.
sending you a gift card, or, hey, let me come over and, do your dishes or do your laundry or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
or hold your baby so that you can go get a shower. That was huge for me where it's like, "Okay, sure, you can hold her so that I can go shower or go take a
Yeah.
bath real quick," or, whatever. So some of those
Mhm.
different things, or even, "Okay, let's just go outside and let's sit, out in the sun, or let's go for a walk,"
Mhm.
depending on how far out postpartum you are, that distance obviously changes, but, some of those different pieces too, where it's like, "Hey, that support looks different in each different stage of that season too,
Mhm.
um, and with people's different needs with where they're coming from too. So yeah, something that I was very appreciative to have all of that support and alignment for my family and as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your whole story and then sharing your postpartum experience with us and all those little tips that you left in there as well for everyone. So, thank you so much for sharing everything.
Absolutely. Yes. Happy
Mhm.
to share.
What a beautiful home birth story that was that she shared. I loved all of the little sweet moments that were kind of tucked in there as well. It was so beautiful and so sweet. I really enjoyed it, so I hope you guys did too. One thing that she kind of brought up that was a lifesaver for her in postpartum was the Earth Mama perennial spray. And I just have to say that I absolutely love that product as well. I have personally used it after both of my home births, and I gift it to all of my clients also. That is just how much I love this product. So, if you are currently planning a home birth and getting all of your postpartum necessities ready, this is one thing you need to have on your list. So, I will be leaving a link down below where you can go ahead and purchase this perennial spray. Also, I will add my code where you can get a discount off of it as well. So, feel free to go ahead and use that code. If you are wanting to know more products that I used for my pregnancy, birth, postpartum, all of those things that I personally have used and thought of as necessities as well. I do have a free essentials ebook that you can download. All you have to do is put in your email and then you'll get the link straight to this ebook, and you will be able to purchase any products that you need or want off of there straight with the link because it's the picture of the product and then the link of the product as well. So it's very easy for you to go and purchase any products that you want. Like I said, this ebook is completely free. I do make a small commission off of the affiliate links from these products. So if you do use any of these links, thank you so much for supporting me and my business. That link, like I said, will be down below for you to go ahead and download. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to leave a review and a rating if you feel called to, and we'll be back with more home birth stories.